That night, John Wayne wasn't driving home. He was driving to the hospital. But he saw someone on the road, and that moment told him he had to stop. Highway 89. Arizona. November 1978. The sun was setting behind the Mogollon Rim, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple that would have looked artificial if they weren't so perfectly real. The two-lane highway stretched empty in both directions, just asphalt and sagebrush, and the kind of silence that makes you hear your own thoughts too clearly. John Wayne's Cadillac moved steadily northward. Dark blue. Chrome gleaming in the fading light. The engine's hum was the only sound for miles. He was 71 years old. He was dying. He knew it. The doctors knew it. The studio executives who kept calling about one more film knew it too, though nobody said it out loud yet. Stomach cancer. They'd removed a lung and part of his stomach the year before. He'd done interviews from his hospital bed, cracking jokes, playing the role. Hell, they took out more than I needed anyway. He told a reporter, and America had laughed because John Wayne couldn't possibly be dying. John Wayne was permanent. But alone in his car on that desert highway, driving to yet another appointment with yet another specialist in Flagstaff, he felt every one of his 71 years. Felt the weight of the pain medication in his system. Felt the exhaustion that came from fighting your own body. He saw the car about a quarter-mile ahead. Pulled off on the shoulder. Hood up. Hazard lights blinking weakly in the growing dusk. Wayne's first instinct was to keep driving. He was late. He was tired. He was sick. Someone else would stop. Someone younger, healthier, better equipped to help. But his foot moved to the brake anyway. Not because he thought about it. Not because he made a conscious decision. His foot just moved, and the Cadillac slowed, and John Wayne was pulling onto the shoulder 30 feet behind the broken-down sedan before he'd fully registered what he was doing. He sat there for a moment, engine idling, looking at the car ahead. A kid, couldn't be more than 20. Stood beside it, staring under the raised hood with the universal expression of someone who knows absolutely nothing about car engines but is hoping the answer will reveal itself through sustained looking. Wayne turned off his ignition. Opened his door. The desert air hit him, still warm from the day but cooling fast, carrying that particular smell of creosote and dust that defines the Southwest. The kid heard him approaching and turned. His eyes went wide. "Mr. Wayne?" Wayne nodded once. "Car trouble?" The kid just stared. Mouth open. One hand gripping a wrench he clearly had no idea how to use. "Son," Wayne said, his voice carrying that familiar rumble that had filled movie theaters for 4 decades. "I asked you a question?" "Ah, yes, sir. It just died. I was driving and it just stopped." Wayne stepped past him and looked into the engine compartment. He wasn't a mechanic, but he'd spent enough years on location shoots in the middle of nowhere to know the basics. He checked the battery terminals. Looked at the distributor cap. Pulled the dipstick. "When's the last time you put oil in this thing?" The kid's silence was answer enough. Wayne straightened up, his back protesting the movement. "You got any oil in the trunk?" "No, sir." "Water?" "Just a bottle. For drinking." Wayne looked at the kid properly for the first time. Early 20s. Jeans worn through at the knees. Flannel shirt with a name tag still pinned to it. Dave, Northern Arizona University Food Services. A backpack in the rear seat stuffed with textbooks. A calculator. A notebook with Math 301 written on the cover. Working his way through college. Wayne knew the type. Had been the type, a lifetime ago, before movies and fame and becoming a symbol for something he wasn't sure he'd ever really been. Wayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Where were you headed?" "Flagstaff. I've got a shift at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I work in the cafeteria." "I was trying to get back from." Dave stopped, seeming to realize he was babbling to John Wayne on the side of Highway 89. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wayne. You don't need to. I'll figure something out. I don't want to keep you." Wayne looked at him. Really looked. Saw the carefully maintained composure starting to crack. Saw the fear underneath. This kid was alone on a highway with no cell phone. They didn't exist yet. No money for a tow truck, and probably no plan B. You got family you can call? My mom's in Prescott. But she works nights. She doesn't have a car anyway. Father? Something flickered across Dave's face. No, sir. Wayne understood that particular silence. Had carried a version of it himself most of his life. He looked back at the dead car. At the empty highway. At the sun dropping below the horizon. It would be full dark in 20 minutes. The temperature would drop into the 40s. This kid would be stuck here all night, hoping someone stopped who wasn't looking to rob him or worse. Wayne made a decision. The kind of decision he'd made 1,000 times in movies but which felt different when it was real, when there were no cameras and no second takes and no director to yell, "Cut," if you chose wrong. "Get your things," he said. Dave blinked. "Sir? Your books. Whatever you need. Get them out of the car. I'll drive you to Flagstaff." "Mr. Wayne, I can't." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Wayne said, his voice flat, final. "Get your things. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding." Dave scrambled to obey, pulling his backpack and a duffel bag from the back seat. Wayne walked back to his Cadillac, opened the passenger door, and gestured for the kid to get in. They drove in silence for the first 10 minutes. Dave sat rigid, hands clasped in his lap, clearly terrified to touch anything in what was obviously an expensive vehicle owned by one of the most famous men in America. Wayne kept his eyes on the road. The pain medication was wearing off. He could feel the dull ache starting to build in his abdomen. He should have been at the hospital an hour ago. The doctors would be annoyed. His assistant would be frantic. None of it seemed to matter. "You a student?" Wayne asked, breaking the silence. "Yes, sir. Junior. Math major." Math. Wayne almost smiled. Never could get the hang of that. Barely made it through high school arithmetic. "I find that hard to believe, sir." "Believe it. I got by on other things. Stubbornness mostly." He paused. "What do you want to do with math?" Dave shifted in his seat. "Teaching, maybe. Or engineering. I haven't decided yet. Right now I'm just trying to pay for next semester. Hence the cafeteria job." "Yes, sir. And I work weekends at a gas station in Prescott." That's where I was coming from. Picked up an extra shift. Wayne nodded slowly. He'd worked his way through USC playing bit parts and working as a prop man. Different era, same struggle. "Your mother know you're driving a car that's about to die permanently?" "She knows it's old. I tell her it's fine. But it's not fine." "No, sir." They drove another 5 miles before Wayne spoke again. "I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to argue with me or thank me or make a fuss. You understand?" Dave turned to look at him, confused and slightly alarmed. "Ah, yes, sir?" Wayne reached into his jacket pocket with his right hand, keeping his left on the wheel. He pulled out his wallet, worn leather, thick with cards and cash he rarely used because people rarely let him pay for anything. He extracted several bills without counting them and held them out toward Dave. "Take this." Dave stared at the money. "Mr. Wayne, I can't." "You can and you will. That car's not getting fixed. You need a different vehicle. And you need it before you kill yourself driving that death trap in the dark." "Sir, this is too much. It's not too much. It's what you need." Wayne's voice was firm but not harsh. "You're working 2 jobs to get through school. Your mother's working nights. You're doing it right, the hard way, the honest way. That deserves respect. It deserves help. But I didn't ask. I know you didn't ask. That's why I'm giving it." Wayne's jaw tightened slightly. "Son, I've made more money than I know what to do with playing cowboys and soldiers in movies. I never went to war. I never did half the things those characters did. But I can do this. I can help one kid get through school. So take the money and don't insult me by arguing." Dave's hands were shaking as he took the bills. His eyes were wet. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, Mr. Wayne. I don't know how to. You thank me by finishing school. You thank me by helping the next person who needs it when you're able. That's all." They drove the rest of the way to Flagstaff without speaking, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of understanding, of a debt acknowledged that could never be repaid directly but would ripple outward. Wayne pulled up to the address Dave gave him, a small apartment complex near the university. The kid gathered his bags, paused at the door. "Mr. Wayne?" "Yeah? Are you okay? You look tired." Wayne almost laughed. This kid, who'd been stranded on a highway and just received a small fortune from a stranger, was worried about him. "I'm fine, son. You take care of yourself." Dave nodded, started to close the door, then stopped again. "I'll remember this. My whole life, I'll remember this." "Good," Wayne said simply. He watched the kid walk into his apartment building, then sat in his car for a moment before driving to the hospital. He was 2 hours late. He didn't care. Away from the cameras, Wayne made a choice no one expected. The doctors ran their tests, drew their blood, asked their questions. Wayne answered mechanically, his mind elsewhere. He thought about that kid. About working 2 jobs. About worn-through jeans and beat-up cars and the quiet desperation of trying to build a future with nothing but determination and hope. He thought about all the times in his life when someone had given him a chance. A director who'd cast him when he was nobody. A stuntman who'd taught him how to throw a punch on camera. A producer who'd believed in a Western at a time when Westerns were considered dead. He thought about all the chances he'd been given, and all the ones he might have missed giving. When he got home that night, late, exhausted, in more pain than he'd admit, he didn't go straight to bed. He went to his office. Sat at his desk. Pulled out a piece of paper. He wrote a letter. Not to Dave. He didn't know the kid's last name, and had deliberately not asked. But to his business manager. Instructions for a scholarship. Anonymous. For students working their way through Northern Arizona University. Preference given to those from single-parent households. Renewable. Permanent. He signed it, sealed it, left it on his desk for the morning. Then he opened his desk drawer and pulled out the small box he kept there. Inside was his Congressional Gold Medal, awarded for his contribution to the nation through film. He looked at it for a long time. All those movies. All those heroes. All those men who did the right thing when it was hard. He'd never felt like a real hero. He'd acted the part. But tonight, on Highway 89, he'd done something real. Something small. Something that mattered. He put the medal back and closed the drawer. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. Wayne died 10 months later. June 1979. The nation mourned. Presidents eulogized him. Film retrospectives played on every channel. He was called an icon, a legend, a symbol of American values. But David Harrison, who would go on to earn his degree, become a high school math teacher, and eventually a principal, never told the story publicly until 30 years later, when he was interviewed for a documentary about Wayne's life. He was dying, Dave said, his voice thick with emotion even decades later. I found out later he was on his way to the hospital when he stopped. He was in pain. He was late for his appointment. And he still stopped. He still helped. He still gave. The documentary crew asked to see proof. Dave pulled out his wallet. Inside, carefully preserved in plastic, was one of the bills Wayne had given him, a $20 bill he'd kept for 30 years. On the back, in faded ink, someone had written a single word. Character. Dave had no idea who'd written it or when. But it had been in Wayne's wallet that night, and now it lived in his. I've helped 47 students through college, Dave said quietly. Gave them money when they needed it. Drove them when they were stranded. I never told them why. I just did it. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. The scholarship Wayne established still exists. It's been awarded to over 200 students. None of them know who funded it. Wayne never mentioned that night. Not in interviews. Not to friends. He just did what needed doing, then went home. That's what real heroes do. They don't perform for cameras. They stop on empty highways. They help when no one's watching. They leave the world quietly better than they found it. Dave Harrison still teaches. Still helps students. Still carries that $20 bill. And every November, on the anniversary of that night, he drives Highway 89 at sunset and remembers the man who stopped when he didn't have to.